Hey guys, wanted to cover a case with you guys. Very important case. It happened a long time ago. But before we do that, I would like you all to take a moment and remember the families and the victims. These were very innocent young women that were taken way too soon, that were just out to have fun at a Girl Scout camp. This happened in 1977 here in Oklahoma in Locust Grove. When I first started looking at this case, I also thought that it wasn't anything cryptid paranormal, that it was Gene Leroy Hart that had committed these crimes. And if you read a lot of the newspaper headings and stuff, that's what they would have you believe. I'm going to take a trip down a different path today and see what you all think and kind of where it took me. I asked a lot of questions. It took me a long time to do this. I've been working on this for a while. So we're going to go ahead and start. Taking place in 1977, 3 Girl Scouts were found brutally killed during a week-long trip in Oklahoma. But the murders still remain unsolved to this day. To help shed more light on what actually went down on the campground, experts, investigators, and local officials turned advanced technologies like DNA testing to help review old evidence and unearth new clues. Interviews with the victims' families, camp counselors, reporters, and private investigators was conducted. On the morning of June 13th, 1977, 3 Girl Scouts, Lori Lee Farmer, 8 years old, Doris Denise Milner, 10, and Michelle Heather Goose, 9, were sexually assaulted and murdered on the first night of a week-long camping trip at Camp Scott in Mays County. Their bodies were crumpled under bloodied sleeping bags, were half-heartedly discarded on a trail just 100 yards away from their shared sleeping tent. One of the questions I had was, how does an offender attack and kill and remove 3 girls from one tent and no one hears anything? They're saying the girls were all killed inside the tent except for one, and the one that was left alive was sexually assaulted probably while she was alive. It's a really tough case, especially with the ages of these young women. A lengthy investigation, authorities arrested and charged Gene Leroy Hart, a local jail escapee who had previously been convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women, along with 4 counts of first-degree burglary. The case, however, was soon reopened after Hart was acquitted by a local jury in March of 1979. Absolved of his charges, Hart only returned to state prison to continue serving a sentence of his prior convictions. They did not have enough evidence to say that he'd done this, and a jury did not feel that he'd done this, and later on you're actually going to see how many people did not feel he'd done this. Carla Sue Wilhite, who was a camp counselor at the Kiowa unit and just 18 years of age during the murders, recalled her first day at Camp Scott. She stated how humid the weather was and that it had recently stormed heavily. On the first night of the trip, Wilhite said she woke up twice during the late hours. The first occasion was to check up on a nearby and noisy tent of campers, but the second occasion was more stomach churning. For Wilhite, who said she heard a strange noise that was nothing she had ever heard before and was not human. That's an official statement. The noise was coming from an area near her unit. When she got closer, the noise would get quiet, But when she walked away, the noise would get louder. According to Wilhite, the sound in question wasn't a growl or a moan, but rather something in between. That is very common in the cryptic world. That has happened to me numerous times. You hear the noise, you go toward it, it stops, or it gets further away. You start going away, it starts following you, and it starts doing it again. That's very common. The noise was coming from an area near her unit. It was a wooded area. When she got closer, the noise would stop. As she went away, it would start again. Now, this is something, guys, I want you to really listen to here. This is her statement. "I was frightened. I didn't want anything to pounce out of the woods at me," she explains. "Whatever it was, I didn't want to tangle with it." She then said she walked away and retreated back to her tent. Just with that statement right there that she made, guys, she knew this was not human. Did she see it? I'm thinking she might have seen this thing. That's just an opinion, but I'm thinking she's seen it. And you'll see why. She says, "You know, when I look back at it now, though, I regret," Wilhite says. "Pursuing frequently, I have guilt that I didn't go there. Now that I look back at it now." It's assumed that what Wilhite had heard, this is from the investigators, was possibly one of the victim's final moments. The next morning, Wilhite said that she saw a sleeping bag lying in the middle of the trail. Where she got closer, she saw underneath it was an unclothed and deceased camper who was later identified as Milner. Farmer and Goose's bodies were also found just a few feet covered in sleeping bags and piled next to a tree. The investigators at this point are already trying to twist the narrative, in my opinion, to try to say that there wasn't something there that night. They're trying to say that it was the last moments of somebody dying. She heard what she heard. She knows what she heard. And I think she even seen something. But going on. Tim Stanley, a general assignment reporter for Tulsa World, said there were 3 principal cave sites topping the cliffs that surround the Camp Scott. One site, which was described as a cave, was actually a cellar, and inside was an arrangement of 4 spot fires with kindling and firewood. He said, "I thought, well, that's a symbolic of a ritual ceremony. 4 sacred fires," said Harvey Pratt, a former agent of the Indigenous Arts for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. "My thoughts was, oh hell no. I hope this is not an Indian that done this." Cherokee Nation and other Indian nations use fires as a ceremonial ritual for healing, visions, and shape-shifting. Was he a shapeshifter? Do you believe that Jean Leroy Hart was a shapeshifter? Leave that to you guys. Behind at the scene of the crime alongside were black and white wedding photographs of 3 unnamed women. After the photographs were shared publicly, investigators connected the dots and found their suspect. Jean Leroy Hart, a member of the Cherokee Nation and a convicted rapist who escaped from a county prison 4 years prior to the murders. Okay, there we go. I hope it's not an Indian, guys. I really do, because this is ritualistic. Then who do they go after? An Indian. Y'all following that? Did Mr. Hart do it, or was it planted, as some said? A lot of people believe that picture was planted to make it look like he done that, because while he was in prison, he worked as an assistant to a photography, okay? That picture was one that he assisted with and taken. That picture was at the prison. People in the community believe that law enforcement planted that picture to establish an offender. Following Hart's escape from prison and his possible connection to the murders, investigators and law enforcement actively searched for his whereabouts, even enlisting the help of canine units. The extra help provided to be useless, however, as the dogs could only sniff out small areas of the campsite before their targeted scent was gone. This led police to believe that Hart was an expert woodsman and exceptionally skilled at hiding in the vast wilderness. Even if he was an expert wilderness, and even if he was good at hiding in the woods, that has nothing to do with scent. Scent does not go higher than 7 foot usually. So, again, as you can see, that does not make sense to me. It may to you, it does not to me. Does this have anything to do with him being in the woods, or does it follow the 411 dogs that also cannot track? Pretty soon he almost became mystical, is what Pratt from the OSBI stated. Then you start hearing stories about how he can shapeshift. They said he can change into a bird. Pratt was a forensic investigator with the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, and now is using words that are possibly hints like he can shapeshift, mystical, and can change into a bird. These are all phrases used by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. Some said, well, it's probably because when he ran across the field, all of a sudden he turned into a bird and flew away. There were not just a few that believed this, but thousands that even attended his funeral that believed he was a shapeshifter and was innocent of the murders of the little girls. It's weird, guys. Mysteriously, 2 of the canines who were part of the investigation died shortly after they had tried to track whatever was out there. They say Gene Leroy Hart was out there, but they never had proof of that, guys. They never found him, never seen him, never scented him. So I'm not going to follow that narrative again. Trust me, I'm no Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigator, but with my investigative skills, if they don't have no proof, then they're totally speculating it was him, and I'm not going to follow speculation because I just don't believe we can find the truth that way. It's just my opinion. I'm going to base mine off of proof, and I'm going to follow it that way. That's how I said I'm going to go a little different way. Hart was also referred to as a boogeyman and was described by law enforcement as a person who does not belong to what we accept as the normal human race. Look at all the hints that are being thrown out there. The OSBI, they're using he can shapeshift, mystical, change into a bird. Now you got the local law enforcement saying that he was not accepted as a normal human race. Remember, this is 1977. They're not as good at hiding things back then as maybe they are now. It's all theoretical. I researched this. The Cherokee Nation called skinwalkers, you're all going to love this, boogeyman. And they are also calling what did this not a normal human race. Maybe what the Cherokee Nation called the Sasquatch, the Shy Tribe, which we call Bigfoot, are they hinting to us accidentally letting out things that we're catching? 2 of the girls were found in sleeping bags and the bottom all curled up. The black female was found halfway out of the sleeping bag and near the road, sexually assaulted. The DNA was never matched to anyone. That is very important to know, and even with today's technology, when they revisited the case and used DNA, top-notch DNA equipment, the DNA was never matched to anyone, but unknown. Unknown. Well, that fits in a lot of these. They were all believed to be beat to death. So how could 2 girls be beat to death and another took and no one heard anything? If you're beat to death, would you not think that there would be a noise? Or was it a dogman or a werewolf or a Bigfoot or a shapeshifter? Or Gene Leroy Hart was just strong enough in one blow when he walked in to hit, and kill that easy. With blood splatter plumb up on the tent, all in the floor. I don't think so. There was some footprints that were found at the scene. There was one set, but also investigators said the scene was not very well controlled and it was not very well marked off, as there was footprints from many workers counselors, law enforcement, and investigators that had walked through the area, possibly contaminating the area. So in my opinion, those footprints ain't worth nothing. But the two girls killed in a tent, they believe the third one was maybe removed from the tent and killed, and nobody heard anything while they're beat to death. The black female wrote a letter to her mom, guys, that stated in the letter to her mom that they would all die the next day. Were these little girls seeing something in the woods? Was they hearing something in the woods? Did they know there was something around that was not human, that was a threat to them? Because, I mean, she's telling her, Mom, come and get me. We're all going to die. They had a fear of something, guys. It ain't like this just, they went to bed at night and something came in and killed them. This little girl is reaching out the best way she knows how at her age. She is saying, Mom, we're all going to die. Think about that. Little girl reaching out the best way she knows how, and she says we're all going to die. They was seeing or hearing something, guys. Something was not normal. The lady at the camp counselor, the 18-year-old that heard the noises, it was in the woods. Even to this day, when she even tries to remember the sounds, even if it was just the sounds, if she didn't see it, which I believe she did, I believe that's why it bothers her so much, but even if it was just the sounds, and I have a hard time believing it's just the sounds, I believe she's seen it, she breaks down with PTSD. She, to this day, 40-some years later, she saw something horrible, or at least heard something horrible. I keep thinking she's seen it. I just have a feeling she saw more than what she's saying. There was blood all inside this tent, okay? I mean, it was a gruesome scene, but one time hit to do that much damage, and I don't know. No weapon? I don't know. There's a lot of stories out there, and you can follow each and every one of them and have a million pages, but when you look down to the bare facts, there was no suspects at the time, and this is their statement. There was no suspects at the time, but a mystical creature was mentioned several times by all the agencies, guys, but was never released in the press, to the news, or put in a newspaper. They kept that hush. Now, they did find a flashlight. This is one of the big things that they found. They found a flashlight that had a plastic bag over the lens that had a little pinhole in it. The police and investigators believe that, I guess, Mr. Hart used that flashlight, wrapped it up and everything, and walked down there, and he used this little bitty pinhole in it to get around without tripping. Well, a pinhole's not going to give you much view anyway. A pinhole's going to be virtually useless. I mean, if you're an outdoorsman, you know you put a pinhole in it, all you're going to see is a little... It's not going to do any good. But I thought it was weird, so I spoke to some camp people. And did you know that back then in 1977, they did not have laser pointers? But the camp directors would put bags over flashlights or cardboard, and they would make holes in it to make pointers for story time. Just want to throw that out there to you. The dogs would not track the scent. That tells me that it matches the things that's going on in our national, all of our national parks. Do you guys believe he was able to turn into a bird? Or do you just think he had superhuman strength? Or do you even believe it was him at all? Because they never found him, never scented him. DNA did not match him. Or was there a werewolf there, guys? A Bigfoot? A skinwalker? What did this? Police said that it did this. Police said in their statement what did this was not, again, normal human race. Hart was blamed, but thousands of people said it was not him. Hart was found not guilty. At his funeral, thousands of people went to his funeral because they knew that he had been unjustly charged. People knew what was in those hills, I believe, guys. The Indians knew. They don't get much credit for their knowledge, but they knew. The people knew on the jury. They knew it wasn't him. There was no evidence. Was Gene Leroy Hart a good person? Hell no. He was convicted of rape, burglary. He done some bad things. He was not a good person. But the evidence does not support, in my opinion, him doing this. The DNA doesn't match. The dogs couldn't find him. There is too many things to me that lean the other way that something else done this. But that's just my opinion. I wanted to throw this out there for you guys. See what you guys thought. Put a lot of hours into this. It was important to me. Most of all, we need to remember these 3 young girls that lost their lives and how tragic it was, and prayers to the families. It breaks my heart to see kids that young even to be hurt, let alone murdered. Whatever done this, in my opinion, there's a place in hell for it. It's terrible, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Some parts that weren't talked about, the flashlight and other things that I found out about that I thought was important to this. Important, some of the words they use and phrases they use. Sometimes in an investigation, it's one word that'll lead you to the truth. There's a lot of words in there, I think, that just don't follow their narrative. But I wanted to share this with you. Thank you guys for watching. Share it out. Show it to people. Glad to be back. And till next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel. God bless.